Hi, my name is Steven Barrera, and I'm going to be talking to you about the popular dishes from the Philippines today. And first, I'm going to give a brief history about the country of the Philippines. And they were controlled by the Spanish for 300 years, and this occurred because of Ferdinand Magellan. And Magellan had arrived in 1521 while on his trip to circumnavigating around the globe. And fast forwarding to 1898, when the Spanish American War had been going on, America had defeated the Spaniards, and after a long conflict filled future, the Philippines had put into some form of independence. Today, the population of the Philippines has come out to 110 million people. A very large percentage of this number is Filipino, along with people from Spain still staying there in the country, along with various other people. And I chose this country because I have some family there that currently live there, so I thought it'd be interesting to learn more about their lifestyle and the food they have there. And next, I'll be talking about the geography of the Philippines. And the Philippines is made up of over 7,000 different islands, and within these 7,000 islands, there is a large variety of what you will encounter. There are mountainous terrains that include mountains that go up to 10,000 feet, and there are also many active volcanoes in the country since it was the Pacific Ring of Fire. And as far as the dense forests go, it was once a spectacular feature about the Philippines, with a huge portion of the country being dense forest. And looking at it today, it's about at 6.5 million hectares, and this is cut down because of the agriculture that has been in the works. And for the coastal areas of the Philippines, it is seen as one of the best features of the country. And the fishing grounds in these areas have become overfished, however, and they are trying to cut down on people from fishing illegally since it's been such a great feature for their country. And next, I'm going to show you some pictures of the Philippines and exactly what the geographics are all about. And this first picture, we see the coastal areas of the Philippines, and you could see the people with boats who could possibly be fishing as well. And the next picture is of the rural area of the Philippines, and I thought this picture was interesting because of the volcano in the background. And the last picture gives us a look at the normal city of the Philippines, and you can see that there's still a dense percentage of the forest within the parts of the city, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And moving on, I'm going to be talking about the popular foods of the Philippines and what popular dishes are served at certain times of the day and some information about those dishes. The first breakfast dish I'm going to be talking about is silog. This dish was influenced by the Spaniards a century ago and has evolved from being tapas, which was served with chunks of meat and liquor. And as time has passed, the Philippines had evolved the dish into a breakfast dish. It consists of garlic, rice, fried egg, and tapa. This, however, is just one version of the dish because the people have decided to serve it with proteins such as hot dog, ham, tocino. It is more a preference of what protein you prefer with yours with. It is seen as one, if not the easiest and fastest breakfast dishes you can put together. It is also a very affordable breakfast dish considering the lack of complexity and simple ingredients that the next dish has. And the next dish I'm going to be talking about is lugao. And this dish was introduced by the Chinese Filipino migrants and has evolved a great amount. This basic version of this dish is served with rice, water, and salt, and you can add things to it such as chicken and egg on top of it. It is seen as a great meal for people when they are sick, and kind of their version of chicken noodle soup, I guess. And the price of lugao is also seen as cheap because of the simple ingredients that are needed to make this dish. And the next breakfast dish I'll be talking about is pandesal. And pandesal comes from the Portuguese settlers, and the Filipino people never used wheat, but these settlers had brought it to them. And in today's world, actually, the Philippines still does not grow wheat and imports most of their items. And pandesal was considered the bread of the poor, but in today's world is one of the best dishes in the Philippines, and they are served in bakeries and are a hot commodity. Compared to normal bread, it is supposed to be more of a sweet bread, and this is possible because they use egg and milk instead of water, which produces the sweetness. And there are also plenty of options you can put into the pandesal bread. People put things such as pork, ham, bacon. You can even put something like chocolate inside of it if you want. Because there is such a variety that goes along with this dish, it makes sense that it is so sought after by the Filipino people. And as for price, it would also be considered a very cheap item that many people get. And next, I'll be talking about the lunch dishes that will be available in the Philippines, the most popular ones. And the first lunch dish I will be talking about is sinigang. And sinigang has been around for the Spanish, has been around for even before the Spanish has invaded the Philippines. And it is one of the oldest dishes still among the people, and it is very popular till this day. Sinigang is a sour tasting soup that is usually served with rice, and many people eat this dish on events such as birthdays or holidays, and is seen as one of the greatest dishes of their people. And like a lot of other Filipino food, this can also be served with a variety of ways. You are able to cook this dish with pork, chicken, beef, short ribs, and many more. The main dish would be considered to be the pork, however. This item turns the dish sour, and it is symbolic. It is a type of fruit that gives the soup an extra kick to it. And when you are sick, it kind of gives you a nice little boost to your, feeling, because it has that strong taste to it. And this dish is actually still evolving till this day, with people using different flavoring to make the soup better to their liking. And this dish is a pretty cheap dish, moderate dish. I'd say that it's a middle of the road price, because if you want to add protein to it, it can be a little more expensive, but at the end of the day, it's still a pretty moderate dish for you can get. And the next slide, I'm going to be talking about sisig, and this dish is actually recorded in 1732, and it originated from the Spanish. It was recorded as a salad, actually, but as time went on, and there was actually U.S. Air Forces there, and they had actually been eating in the Philippines. They were originally throwing away the pig's head because they were not used to eating that, but the Filipino people had told them that they would use that head and make a dish out of it, and this transformed a dish called sisig into a mixture of pig head parts that is very popular around the Philippines. The dish consists of things such as pig ears and pig snout, along with things such as pig belly. People like to personalize sisig and throw things into it such as egg or vegetables, but the main part of it is that the pig head features with a pork belly. The idea of eating the leftover parts of the pig head may not seem like a great lunch to some, but to the Filipino people it is seen as an excellent meal they would gladly have all the time. And since sisig is mostly the pig's head, it is seen as a very affordable dish, and this may have been more true back in the day when it was not as well known, but in today's age it is still very affordable to the people. And the next lunch dish I'm going to be talking about is pancit. And it was originally introduced by Chinese immigrants. Over the centuries, it has developed into a dish with plenty of variety within it. Pancit basically means noodles in the Filipino language. Pancit is bihon, which is also called rice sticks. You also would put into a protein of your choice along with a sauce like teriyaki sauce. And pancit, like many other dishes, is able to have a variety of options that work very well together. It is also a dish that can be eaten if you're looking to be on a diet. It is a very light dish that can be made heftier by adding certain ingredients. It is seen as a staple as far as noodles go in the Philippines, and is a dish that many people look forward to having. And pancit is also relatively cheap, and you really just have to make the noodles and the vegetables, and I think that's kind of what makes it cheap. And if you add some protein to it, it will make the price a little more expensive, but at the end of the day, it's still very affordable. Next, I'll be talking about the dinner dishes that are popular in the Philippines. And the first dish I have is the adobo dish. And adobo is a dish that originated from people wanting to have their food last as long as possible so they could eat it again. The solution to this was for them to use plenty of vinegar and salt in the dish. Adobo is considered one of the main staples of Filipino food. It is simply as popular as it gets as far as Filipino food goes. There are plenty of Filipino dishes you can make a variety of things out of, but this is not really one of them. The stars of this dish are the vinegar and soy sauce. You serve it over rice, and the variety really you can only have here is the protein, but most still choose to just have it with chicken. There may be other things you could change about this dish, but at the end of the day, it's always going to be the vinegar and soy sauce that makes the entire dish. The combination gives you a somewhat sour taste that is not overpowering. Along with the starch and a protein, it mixes together very well. For the price of the dish, it is a definitely cheaper option for you to make as far as dinners go, and the ingredients call for you just making a small portion of protein and along with rice for your sauces. And for people who want a hefty meal along with it being affordable, this is a great dish. The next dish I'm going to talk about is lechon, and this dish originated from the Spanish and has been a very popular dish in the Philippines. The entire pig is roasted over a fire for about 4 to 5 hours and is slow cooked so that it can be tasted at its peak. Lechon is seen as a very special dish that is to be eaten on certain occasions, such as family gatherings or perhaps eaten over the holidays. You are able to eat the entire pig, and it is a giant enough for many people to eat and possibly have some left over. As far as the variations for lechon, it is a pretty standard way you cook it. There are small things you can add to it, such as spices and such, but the main part of it being just roasting an entire pig until it is done. And this is the major part of that dish. This is possibly the most famous dish that is eaten in the Philippines because of the look of it and because of the sentimental value it has around it. And this dish being a symbol of unity and good times brings the people a sense of enjoyment whenever they hear the word lechon. As for the price of lechon, it is probably the most expensive dish you can get into the Philippines. It is a large dish that can only be finished by a large number of people, and to go along with the fact that an entire pig is generally just an expensive item. This is definitely not a dish you would be looking to eat every week, but when the occasion calls for it, people will spend the money for lechon and everything that comes along with it. The next dish I'm going to be talking about is kare-kare. And this dish has a lot of stories from where it originated, but for most people believe that it was originated from the Pampangans with the reputation that they would cook their hearts out. And kare-kare is basically a type of Filipino stew with a thick and rich peanut sauce. This is another dish where the variations you can put into the dish as far as meat goes. You're able to put dish with pork, beef, and even seafood such as shrimp, crab, and if you choose to do so. The traditional dish is served with oxtail and vegetables such as string beans and eggplants, and the main parts of this dish are definitely the peanut sauce that is your stew, along with the protein that you choose to put along with it. As for the price of kare-kare, it is seen as the middle of the road price for dish, and the peanut sauce and the protein actually make this dish a little bit expensive, but if you find vegetables, it could cost you a little more also. And next I will be talking about the desserts that are going to be available in the Philippines that are popular. And the first dessert I'll be talking about is halo-halo, and the origins of halo-halo come from the pre-war Japanese Filipinos. The name halo-halo means mix and mix. This makes sense considering it's just a mixture of multiple items in one. Halo-halo is basically shaved ice, condensed milk, and people will add things such as mango beans and sweetened bananas, as well as many other items. One very important item is also adding the ice cream on top of it. And it is probably one of the most popular desserts in the Philippines, and it could be for a few reasons. And one main reason is probably because of the fact that it's such an eye-popping dessert, and it looks amazing if done right. And this along with the fact that it tastes as sweet as you would imagine. And as for the price, this is probably a little more expensive because of the ingredients that makes the whole dish, but it's still a very affordable dish. The next dessert is turon, and the idea of this dish had basically come from the Chinese spring rolls, but a different take on it. It is basically a fruit such as apples or bananas dusted with brown sugar to keep it sweet, stuffed into a thin wheat wrapper and fried to make it crispy. You can add a sauce like caramel to it, but this dish is very popular among the Philippines, and because of how simple it is to make, unlike other desserts, this can be made in a matter of minutes with no stress. And this dish can be very cheap to make, considering you only have to put a fruit and a wheat wrapper together, really. And the last dish I'll be talking about is leche flan, and this dish was brought from the Spanish people during the Spanish colonization, and leche flan is a dish that consists of milk, sugar, and eggs. It is an extremely popular in the Philippines, and probably the most well-known dessert dish that they have. This dish is brought to special events such as family gatherings or birthday parties as well. The price of this dessert dish is very affordable considering it only requires ingredients you already own that are probably just in your house right now. And here is just the references page.